Now, despite underwater banging sounds heard earlier, Titan, the missing submersible, still remains untraceable.
It's really nerve-wracking. It's been more than 80 hours since the sub's descent, with no progress towards its recovery. Survival chances of the explorer remain bleak.
Time and oxygen are running out in the race to find a missing submarine with 5 people on board. The U.S. Coast Guard on Wednesday said efforts by air and sea to locate the 21-foot submersible called the Titan have yet to bear fruit, despite detecting underwater sounds described as banging noises. Coast Guard Captain Jamie Frederick.
With respect to the noises specifically, we don't know what they are, to be frank with you. What I can tell you is we're searching in the area where the noises were detected. The surface search is now approximately 2 times the size of Connecticut, and the subsurface search is up to 2.5 miles deep, exponentially expanding the size of the search area.
The vessel, operated by a private tour company called Ocean Gate Expeditions, embarked on Sunday to carry passengers on a tour of the Titanic's century-old wreckage off the coast of Canada. The expedition cost $250,000 per person. The Coast Guard said the sub lost contact with its surface vessel shortly after its descent. Officials estimate the sub has enough air supply to likely last until Thursday morning.
With respect to food and water, it's my understanding there are some limited rations. I can't tell you exactly how much.
One of the missing passengers is reported to be French explorer Paul-Henri Nargeolet. A friend of his and fellow underwater explorer, Dr. David Gallo, told Reuters he is hopeful after learning of reports that underwater noises are coming in 30-minute intervals.
But I can't think of anything that would be that every 30 minutes, and I do know that P.H. Nargeolet would do something like that to keep so let people know that they're there.
Gallo said he could not imagine the fear of those inside the Titan.
Everyone that's been to the sea, to the bottom of the sea in a submarine, has feared this and wondered what would happen if this happened. In one case, it would be a quick ending if the sub imploded. In another case, if you were trapped, it would be a slower ending. But in either case, I guess if you were trapped there and with air slowly running out, would be just horrible. I don't like to think about it, but it would not be pleasant at all.
For now, it's an all-hands-on-deck mission, with a French research ship carrying a deep-sea diving robot, seen here in video from 2018, dispatched to the area on Wednesday.
All right, for more on this, we're being joined by Professor James Bellingham, who's joining us live from Washington, D.C. on the broadcast. He is the Executive Director of the Institute for Short Astronomy at the Johns Hopkins University. Welcome to the broadcast, sir.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Right. Barely 10 hours of oxygen left. I mean, it is nerve-wracking to even think about what these passengers are going through. The clock is really ticking. Search crews are hearing banging noises coming from the vicinity. What could these possibly be, and what are they hearing?
It's hard to think of what they could be other than somebody banging on something underwater. Particularly if they're coming every 30 minutes, that doesn't sound like a natural, activity. If you get a string of those 30 minutes apart, that's pretty indicative of people behind it. But we don't know. I mean, nobody knows, and I've heard a lot of speculation.
Right, sir. Also, what could have been the possible reasons for the submersible to go missing? And what are the general protocols that are in place in such scenarios?
Yeah, so I think that you're kind of seeing what happens. There's just such a wide variety of potential problems here, and it's hard to know how to even prioritize them. This is a very special submarine built by the organization that operated it. It wasn't classified, so it's not as well documented as some of the other systems in terms of us being able to look and see what was on board in the way of safety devices and in the way of emergency location devices. Under normal circumstances, we would expect to have a variety of backup detection devices on an underwater vehicle. My specialty is really underwater robotics. And when I build deep rated systems, they have transponders, which are active, that you can interrogate acoustically. We have pingers that will go off if something else fails and they're not connected to the electrical system. There's a variety of devices we use on the surface. Radio direction finding allows us to find the radio beacon on the vehicles. We frequently have strobes on them so that you can spot them at night. It's actually much easier to spot things at night at sea if they do have a nice bright strobe on it. And then the usual radio communications that you would have, iridium connection to a satellite relaying GPS. That's, of course, only works if it's on the surface. So the mystery to many of us who are not, inside the ocean gate sort of circle of knowledge, if you will, is why was everything that you would assume would be in place fail in terms of tracking and in terms of interrogation at that hour and 45 minutes into the dive. And so I think that's what made many people fear from the beginning that it was an implosion, because an implosion would be a very energetic event. An implosion would destroy everything. Now, it's also possible that there was some bizarre electrical failure, or they just, for whatever reasons, the acoustics wasn't getting through, and they got down to the bottom, and perhaps they continued to operate normally and got entangled in something. So there's a possibility they're on the bottom. That is not out of the question. And in that case, the ROVs that are being sent out there will be really critical, because you could find it on the bottom and then have a tough time getting it off. The systems that are out there now should be able to do that recovery. Another possibility is that something happened in the water column on its way down. You lose all of the location devices on it for some reason, which it's hard to even guess why that would be. And they do an emergency ascent, and they come to the surface, and the sea conditions and the currents out there are strong enough that they're not able to spot it on the surface. And the ocean, this vehicle probably doesn't ride very high in the water. And what I mean by that is it's not sitting up like a ship in the water. It's kind of lying at the water's surface. And it's surprising how close you could be to something like that and have a difficult time spotting it. So if it came up without any of its location devices operating, it wouldn't be at all surprising that the ship might not spot it, might not be close enough to spot it right off the bat, in which case you would have a situation where the vehicle is on the surface drifting away. The people inside are unable to get out because you have to open it. You have to open the submersible from the outside, and that would be sort of what the surface search would be hoping to find. So those are just some of the possibilities, and I'm sure there's a dozen others I'm not bringing up, but they kind of give you the general sense.
Right. Well, Professor Bellingham, thank you so much for joining us on this broadcast with your insights and inputs on this.
You bet.